Welcome aboard Captain Fun. Today we embark on an icy adventure, tracing the incredible journey of icebergs and their profound impact on maritime history. From their majestic origins in Greenland to their fateful encounters with ships like the Titanic, these colossal ice giants have stories to tell that will chill you to the bone. As you relax on the ship's deck, a chilling sight catches your eye. A whitish-gray mist stretching across the horizon, reminiscent of a horror film or a nightmare. This strange fog is creeping toward the vessel, making it seem like a mere grain of sand in an endless desert. Suddenly it hits you. It's an iceberg, and your ship may be on a path to repeat the Titanic's tragic fate. This scenario is quite plausible, especially with the world's largest iceberg, A23A, on the move again after months of being trapped in a massive water vortex. This is the second time in just a few years that this enormous ice mass has broken free. The first instance was in 2023 when it drifted after being stuck on the seafloor for an astonishing 37 years. A23A is colossal, roughly 3 times the size of New York City and weighing nearly 1 trillion tons. It originally broke away from Antarctica's Filchner ice shelf in 1986 but became grounded just a few miles from its origin, melting at a much slower rate than typical icebergs. In December 2023, A23A finally broke free and began to drift away from Antarctica, but it soon became trapped again near the South Orkney Islands in a phenomenon known as a Taylor column, a swirling water current formed around an underwater mountain. At one point, A23A was rotating counterclockwise at a rate of 15 degrees per day. Fortunately, by December 2024, the iceberg escaped the Taylor column and is now slowly drifting again. Massive icebergs like A23A release nutrients into the ocean as they melt, creating hotspots of life in otherwise barren areas. However, much remains unknown about how the iceberg's size, shape, or origin might influence this process. To gain insights, scientists have been collecting water samples from regions A23A is expected to traverse, and will continue to do so as it drifts along, hoping to better understand the impact of such colossal icebergs on the surrounding ocean. The glacier that A23A was once part of could be incredibly ancient, with some of the oldest glacier ice in Antarctica potentially nearing 1 million years old. In Greenland, the oldest glacier ice is over 100,000 years old, while in Alaska, the oldest recovered glacier ice is about 30,000 years old. In typical Alaskan Valley glaciers, it takes around a century for newly formed ice to traverse the entire glacier. For instance, Alaska's largest glacier, the Bering Glacier, which stretches over 140 miles, allows ice to move through it in less than 400 years, a significant journey for such a massive glacier. Now, let's explore Iceberg Alley, a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean that runs from the Arctic to Newfoundland. If you want to witness a plethora of icebergs, this is the place to be. Each year, numerous icebergs drift through this area, primarily originating from Greenland during the spring and summer months when large chunks of glaciers break off and are carried by ocean currents through Baffin Bay into the Labrador Sea, where they eventually melt. Some icebergs also come from Canada's coastline, traveling through the Davis Strait into the Labrador Sea before drifting along the eastern and western coasts of Newfoundland. These massive ice chunks are quite old, averaging around 10,000 years. Annually, between 400 to 800 medium and large icebergs pass through Iceberg Alley, with their drift speed varying based on size, shape, currents, waves, and wind, but typically averaging less than half a mile per hour. There are 6 types of icebergs that navigate through Iceberg Alley. Tabular icebergs, which are flat and wide, blocky icebergs characterized by steep sides and sharp angles, wedged icebergs with one steep and one sloping side, dome icebergs which have rounded tops, pinnacle icebergs featuring one or more steep peaks, and dry dock icebergs which are U-shaped with a hollowed-out section. Each type is visually stunning. Feel free to comment below with your favorite. As these icebergs drift southward, warmer waters accelerate their melting, making them unpredictable and sometimes hazardous. Nowadays, satellites assist in tracking medium and large icebergs to avert accidents, but smaller icebergs still pose risks for smaller vessels. In 2018, one iceberg made headlines when it drifted unusually close to the Newfoundland village of Fairyland. Images of the towering iceberg overshadowing the village houses went viral. It became stuck in a 330-foot deep area that turned out to be too shallow for its immense size. Now, let's embark on an unusual journey back in time to witness the birth of something both beautiful and catastrophic. An enormous chunk of ice breaks away from a glacier in southwest Greenland, composed of snow that fell over 100,000 years ago when mammoths roamed the earth. The massive iceberg embarks on its lengthy journey, measuring over 1,700 feet in length and weighing 75 million tons. Despite its enormous size, it remains tranquil, drifting far from ships and busy shipping lanes near its birthplace. However, it begins to float south, venturing much farther than most icebergs typically do. Usually icebergs like this melt long before they reach such warm waters. Out of the 15,000 to 30,000 icebergs that break away from Greenland's glaciers each year, only about 1% make it all the way to the Atlantic. Therefore, the fact that this iceberg continues its journey and reaches over 5,000 meters south of the Arctic Circle by April is truly remarkable. Even after months of melting, this colossal block of ice still weighs around 1.5 million tons, almost double the weight of the Golden Gate Bridge. Above the water, its visible portion towers more than 100 feet high, but like most icebergs, about 90% of it remains hidden beneath the surface. The iceberg's tale takes a tragic turn on April 14, 1912, when it encounters the ocean liner Titanic. The ship is approximately 30 to 70 miles from Newfoundland in the North Atlantic Ocean, when the iceberg seemingly appears out of nowhere. The crew fails to spot it until mere minutes before the collision. Why didn't they see it sooner? That's a valid question. Most people envision icebergs as tall, bright white masses of ice, perhaps even dusted with snow. In reality, icebergs can display a variety of colors. Some are striped, patterned, or even have candy-like swirls, while others can appear black. An iceberg can turn black in two ways. If the ice is exceptionally pure, lacking bubbles or cracks, it absorbs all light instead of reflecting it, giving it a black appearance. Alternatively, if a volcanic eruption covers a glacier in ash, the ice that breaks off can take on a dark or black hue. Scientists are still uncertain about why the Titanic's iceberg appeared dark, or if it truly did. One lookout in the crow's nest described it as seeming black, while another referred to it as gray or dark gray. One theory suggests that this iceberg could have been a blackbird, which forms when the top melts, causing the iceberg to roll over. If the bottom is smooth enough to absorb light, it can appear dark. However, even if the iceberg wasn't genuinely black, nighttime conditions could have made it significantly harder to see. Icebergs do not reflect much light, especially if they have jagged or vertical features, allowing them to blend into the dark, shimmering ocean. Without radar, icebergs at night are incredibly difficult to spot, which likely explains why the Titanic's crew did not notice it in time. As we wrap up our exploration of icebergs, we uncover not just their beauty, but also their critical role in shaping maritime history. Join us next time on Captain Fun, where we'll dive deeper into the mysteries of the ocean and the wonders it holds.